participants and a panel to the discussion of bilateral trade opportunities Sri Lanka and United Arab Emirates. First, let me invite Dr. Sulochana Sigera, founder, chairperson Women in Management, to do the introduction about WIM and the objective about this forum. Over to you, Dr. Sulochana.
Good afternoon and good evening to everyone. It's an honor to host this program under the Women in Management theme. Actually, the bilateral trade and the business and investment topic came to my mind after the visit I had it in Dubai and the program which we did it, and after the meeting with SLBC and also with the meeting with the Dunston and the private office of the Sheikh office, where we had a lot of discussion how we can actually the Sri Lanka and open up opportunity to Dubai, and Dubai, how Dubai can open up opportunity to Sri Lanka. And also with Dr. Allan, whom I met, about 15 countries investment process, which is actually new to Sri Lanka, which is already there, and the benefits Sri Lanka also can get, and also the Dubai UAE can get. So these were the reason, and then SLBC being one of the active chambers in UAE, representing Sri Lanka and UAE both. So Riza and the whole team, the Suren, and then they came forward and they said we can contribute the way we can. And Rohan Maskorala, who has been associating with him for a long time, who's an economist, well-known personality and a journalist in Sri Lanka, whom I respect a lot, and also being in the trade, I invited him to give a snapshot about Sri Lanka and what's going on and how is the future. And also Nadia, who has been, I think Rohan said Nadia has been into Sri Lanka to speak about trade opportunities long time ago. So then Shamira, whom I met in Dubai, who actually is from Pakistan, but who has done amazing branding and things in Dubai on trade and business, who's going to be in this, what do you call, panel, will give you all actually how the trade happens in UAE. But the most importantly, our BOI is representing here, and our GM would be able to give what's the investments available in BOI and what are the opportunities available. So this will be an eye-opener for UAE, and also I think not only UAE, there are so many countries who's joining from Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Dr. who is asking, Allan will be giving all an opportunity. So it is the questions and everything can be discussed after the presentation from each person. So I'll kindly request all of you to mute your mics and also be actively participate. And welcoming again and thanking all our speakers for joining us and giving this time to be an eye-opener for both countries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayanti.
Thank you, Dr. Sulochana. Let me invite Mr. Riza Mohammed, Chairman, Sri Lanka Business Council UAE, to do an official introduction about the role of Sri Lanka Business Council in trade and business. Over to you, Riza.
Thank you all, and thank you for Women in Management for initiating this discussion, especially at a time like this. Briefly about Sri Lanka Business Council. We are one of the oldest business council in Dubai, and we are affiliated to the Chamber of Commerce here in Dubai. We also work very closely with the consulate as well as the embassy based in Abu Dhabi. Our main focus is supporting and facilitating trade between the UAE and Sri Lanka. In a nutshell, what we want to do is that we want to see business leads turning into real business opportunities for entrepreneurs, both here in UAE as well as in Sri Lanka. There are multiple stages in a business lead transforming into a business opportunity. It could be the initial stage of evaluation, setting up a business, promotion, or even strengthening your existing business. In all these stages, our focus as the Business Council is to offer the necessary support and, if necessary, the guidance so that the overall trade benefit. We believe discussions like this would be a great platform for the businesses both here in the UAE as well as in Sri Lanka. And that's the reason that we want to be part of this discussion, and also to support wherever we can. Often we are asked the question, is this the right time for this initiative or to do this business? This is a question we keep hearing all the time, every time. I think we believe at the Business Council, we believe it is up to us to make the time right. And I guess the panelists here, the experts here, will have more details to share in those aspects. Like everyone else, we are also from the Business Council very keen to be part of the discussion and hoping to hear everyone's comments. And once again, we as the Business Council are here to support or facilitate whatever we could to kind of, in terms of building relationship and trade between these two countries. And we have worked with WIM in the past as well. And then we are here to support, and all the best. Looking forward to a very good session. Thank you.
Thank you, Reza. Let me invite Mr. Rohan Maskorala. He will be the main panel chair. To commence the session, he will speak about the economical background of Sri Lanka. Mr. Maskorala is a futurist, economist, educator, and entrepreneur. Speciality on development of free zone advisory and business development projects. Currently, the owner of Shippers Academy International and CEO of Shippers Academy Colombo, Director General of Sri Lanka Association of Manufacturers and Exporters of Rubber Products, past Chairman of the Logistics Advisory Committee of the Export Development Board Sri Lanka, and was the National Consultant for International Trade Center, Geneva, on developing board building and logistics for the export strategy for Sri Lanka. He is continuing to be part of ITC consultants on logistics. He is also resourceful in the Department of Transportation and South Asia Logistics. Over to you, Rohan.
Thank you very much. I hope hopefully I can do that now. Can you allow me to host this, my screen, please? It's disabled at the moment.
Yeah, give me a minute, Rohan.
Thank you, Risa, for the introduction as well. And then, of course, while I get the permission to launch my screen, I'd like to thank Women in Management and Sulo and the team always inviting me to some of their programs, try to help the best I can. Sulo, give me a okay when it's ready.
Yeah, it's given.
Okay, thank you. So thank you once again. So today, actually, Sulo, it's a special day. When we had this discussion today, the president of the United Arab Emirates called our new president this morning, wishing him well as he just took over the 9th Parliament and announced his policy framework for Sri Lanka, which is going through a, I would say, a rather disturbing economic crisis, which I'm sure the whole world knows. We have trade deficit, forex, and issues of shortages of many things. The economy is in bad shape at the moment. So obviously, it's probably I also look at it as a time. Okay, I don't think we cannot go beyond this any further down. So from here, it's an upward task for the Sri Lankan economy, and the opportunities for trade and investment related developments in this country, which is sitting just 22 nautical miles adjacent to the massive market of India, which is actually connecting India better than India connects itself through maritime and aviation sectors. Sri Lanka is ideally located like any other hub in the world, which has not been really used to its best potential. So in this instance, today we are talking of two countries which have certain similarities, and of course, United Arab Emirates, one of the richest countries in the world in terms of per capita, I think was around 60,000 United States dollars, and also a $500 billion economy. It's a $500 billion economy with around 10 million people, whereas Sri Lanka is about just now about an $80 billion economy, probably shrinking further this year. And then, of course, with a population of 20 million. And it is a diversified economy to tourism, to manufacturing, investment, logistics, transport. So we have commonalities with UAE very much in terms of logistics. We are both in the first 25 container ports in the world. We operate as regional hubs and global shipping hubs. And shipping is something that Sri Lankan economy wants to expand very much, and to shipping and logistics. The economic growth at the moment is predicted to be negative for this year in Sri Lanka. But the new government under the new president has announced that a new reform agenda for Sri Lanka, opening up to investment and export-oriented economy, will be the key focus as policy has to change in this country to get it out of the current economic crisis it is going through. So the overall snapshot of the Sri Lankan economy right now is, I would say, not in the best of possible ways it could be there, but at the same time, as I said at the outset, that there are opportunities coming up. I mean, India's Adani Group is very much now investing in Sri Lanka, in ports, power generation, and other areas into logistics. As far as I know, the trade balance between our two countries is in favor of UAE. This is the 2020 trade balance, but it's about $1 billion of trade. Slightly before 2020, it was over $1.3 billion. So Sri Lanka's portion is around between $225 million to $300 million of exports, whereas the UAE's exports amount to $1 billion plus some given times, mainly crude oil and refined petroleum products coming in from UAE, and of course Sri Lanka's mainly tea is the #1 export, and we re-export some of the refined products to UAE. So the trade, if you look at the trade gap, UAE is way ahead. So there's not for Sri Lanka to catch up. But for the United Arab Emirates, as far as I can say, is that Sri Lanka is definitely a stepping stone for logistics and related manufacturing and distribution services to the emerging Indian economy, which is now set to be the third largest economy by 2030. And Sri Lanka is adjacent to the 5 states of India, which are doing extremely well. The fastest growing states in India are just adjacent to north of Sri Lanka. So connectivity wise, Sri Lanka is ideally located for those states to be serviced from Sri Lanka. So I also noticed from the UAE embassy that we started our bilateral relationships as way back as in 1979, and UAE is the #1 among the Middle East countries foreign direct investment to Sri Lanka, accounting to about 65% of the Middle East FDI coming into Sri Lanka. I think the space for this is much more. So the numbers are there, but I won't go into details. Sri Lanka has been a friend of UAE, and our countries have been working together for the last over 4 decades in partnership, and more than 300,000 Sri Lankan workforce is in the UAE in various types of employment. So this is how we are positioned at the moment in terms of trade. Now, the opportunity for expansion is very much there in terms of exports. Probably our marketing efforts into the UAE has to be increased. The diversified product ranges that we export, and I just quickly go through some of the slides. And Sri Lanka is specifically known for tea, rubber, and coconut and spices, which is from the British era. And these products are not anymore going on any raw format. A lot of value-added products, final products are going in. In addition, Sri Lanka's #1 exports is the fashion, and we have a little bit of going to the United Arab Emirates at the moment. And then, of course, we have various types of food and cinnamon products and oils that are exported out of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is now even manufacturing electric riding things, Ayurvedic products. I'm not putting in any format manner, but Sri Lanka manufactures yachts and ships. We are supplying through Japanese investments. We have European and US market, mainly exporting yachts and ships to the region. Tropical fish, plants, gems and diamond cutting. Sri Lanka is known to be a gem paradise. Now we've gone into value-added products in rubber, leather, and electrical products manufacturing in Sri Lanka. Then, of course, the food items, as I said, coconut products and other traditional Sri Lankan fruits exported into various parts of the world. Our exports have been growing this year, just been seeing about a 20% increase. Although the economic situation is bad, exports are doing very well. And also the services sector, our port, as I said, is doing very well. Port of Colombo is still growing, and our online ICT services is also a growing industry. We have a pool of talent of people who can be used for any kind of industry, who are fast adapting to the any manufacturing or services industry, and Sri Lankans are doing very well overseas. I'm sure in Dubai, UAE, Abu Dhabi, all these Emirates, there are Sri Lankans doing very well in the upper end of jobs as well. So we continue to do traditional Ayurvedic treatment and flora and horticulture, toys, brushes, commercial printing services. All these things are at the moment. Some of these things I managed to get for your quick glance: handicraft, leather products, ceramic products. All these things are right now exported from Sri Lanka. We even export trailers, electronic components to aircrafts and other things, bicycles, aluminium and copper products. So these are some of the things that I just quickly wanted to grasp through and show that as a country we are doing, and we are now the government's expand the export industry. So what does that mean for a country like UAE? You can look at new products that can be sourced through Sri Lanka, or use Sri Lanka as a hub for your own companies to come and do distribution to the Indian subcontinent region. I know the Jebel Ali free zone. I've been visiting those free zones. So Sri Lanka also has similar legislation now where free zones are operating. There are new investors who are coming. What they do is bring in global products to Sri Lanka and redistribute to the Indian subcontinent market, and storage and distribution using the shipping and connectivity advantages of Sri Lanka. Similarly, of course, another area which we are looking at is the tourism industry. A lot of Middle East and UAE tourists travel to Maldives, but lack of awareness or lack of wrong information sometimes. There is Sri Lanka is omitted being one of the most beautiful islands on planet Earth, where you can see diversified areas of tourism. So this is another area that we should look at bilaterally, working together and improve our connectivity and increase this trade volumes for both sides. And of course, Sri Lanka has a greater potential to increase, and we need that support from the UAE chambers and the business councils to work with us. Although it's, as I said, I think correctly said that we are at somebody would question, is it the best time? I would say it is the best time because this is from there here what we are today. It is only a direction of upwards that we can, because we cannot fall beyond what we have fallen during the last couple of years due to COVID and other reasons. So there is an economy that is potentially very business friendly in terms of people. We are reforming our systems. Information technology systems are coming in for government is being focused. So given all this space, UAE can look at partnerships with Sri Lanka specifically to service the emerging Indian market. There are over 60 Indian companies already established operations in Sri Lanka, and they're servicing not only India, but they're re-exporting from India to other countries. Obviously, if Indian companies are keen to expand here, including the largest, obviously the story is clear that there is enough space for investment and trade between our two countries. So I think I will stop over there and hand back over to the organizers, and then I will coordinate the rest of the presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rohan. Let me invite Dr. Allan to introduce the RCEP 15 countries investment platform and opportunities to both Sri Lanka and UAE with an active perspective. President of RCEP Trader Investment Platform as the Executive Director of the Chapter 1 Asia Group of Companies, the largest brand image organization, and a co-founder of Nukan Global Holdings. Allan's expertise in entrepreneurship, experiential branding, image and core skills have been highly sought after by various sectors and industries. Over to you, Allan.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock now in Malaysia. Okay. So now, before I start, thank you very much, Dr. Sulo and WIM for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share our platform with the UAE and Sri Lanka as well. Right? Before, as I said, I proceed, I would also like to say thank you and nice to meet our fellow speakers today, which I look at your profile, all are very high profile and very well established and experienced, which is very good. I believe in the near future we can really work together and really make something fruitful out of today's meeting. All right. So my presence today here, I wish I will be able to bring new perspective to both UAE and Sri Lanka as well. Technically, it's like opening another window, of opportunities for both the countries to look into. It's just like just now, Mr. Rohan were just sharing, situation now in Sri Lanka is not that rosy, So I believe a lot of entrepreneurs are feeling down and so on and so forth. But rest assured, we used to feel the same during the pandemic, the lockdown in Malaysia and other parts of the world. But because our platform we sits in 15, we actually consists of 15 countries. I can rest assure you, you get a lot of motivation when you work with other countries that are very vibrant. The whole scenario totally changed. All right. So now I will just go on a quick one, give you a brief introduction of who I am, and then of course our platform as well. Okay. All right. Can you see my slides? Can I?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Today I am putting on the hat as a president of the ASEP region, and I am actually from an organization called the International ASEP Trade and Investment Alliance. All right. So as a president, I get invited to a lot of countries to give talks, trade forums, and conferences all over the 15 countries. And I was not spared even during the pandemic and lockdown. We still continue to do a lot of sharing and networking through Zoom and online as well. And of course, During all those meetings, I signed a lot of MOUs. In the beginning, I always questioned why MOUs are being signed and then after that, no actions being done. So I think most of you also have experienced that. So when I took over as the president of the platform, I took an oath that I will make sure that all the MOU I sign will somehow or rather turn out to be something workable. All right. So that's my promise to the platform. All right. And then, okay, allow me to just share with all of you what exactly is this asset. I'm sure most of you here will be asking what is asset. Even the 15 countries who are in the asset region, I would say 90% of the business people are still very, very new to this particular agreement. Now, what is ASEP? ASEP is basically a regional comprehensive economic partnership. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's the world's largest free trade agreement ever being signed. Okay, and why we are championing this particular free trade agreement is for obvious reason. Because this agreement is, to me, is a very comprehensive and a very modern agreement, because it focuses a lot on SMEs and it gives us a lot of opportunities for SMEs to grow internationally. Right? So unlike the conventional free trade agreement where it focuses only on the big boys and MNCs or listed organization. Okay. Now, who are the ASEP countries? It actually consists of the 10 Southeast Asia countries plus the 5 FTA countries, namely China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. So this is the 15 countries that is actually in the whole ASEP region. Now, why is it so significant? The ASEP agreement was just only implemented and mobilized this year, January. Yeah, it was signed about a year and a half ago, but the actual implementation is only this year. Now, the whole ASEP region actually consists of 30% of the world economy. And again, it's also 30% of the world population. So you can actually see, this window of opportunity there is really, really good and really, really amazing, if you ask me. Okay? And sitting in the ASEP as a alliance platform, we actually form an SPV called Nusantara Sino Global Holdings. Now, this organization is basically an organization that helps all SMEs as a consulting organization in as far as trade and investment is concerned. Now, Nusantara Sino Global Holdings, as this SPV, we actually set it up in all the 15 countries of the ASEP region. All the 15 countries, we have an organization there to do exactly the same consulting for trade and investment for all the SMEs. So it is a very vibrant platform. So imagine in 15 countries, we have a physical platform doing very actively helping SMEs to trade and invest globally, technically in the whole ASEP region. I can tell you the vibrancy and the amount of activities produced almost every day is really, really vibrant. So I wish we can open this window of opportunity for all of you to explore as well together with us. All right. Now we have been really doing these activities ever since last year, even before the mobilization of the whole agreement, since last year, May, all right? So there is, I still remember very clearly because that's where the lockdown in Malaysia still enforced. Okay, now, I'm also very proud and really surprised, within a short period of 1 year, okay, the trade that went through our platform is close to, I think it's really past 650 million. And the investment that went through our platform, and again, this is an old figure, I would say, already past, I think the investment part is already past $1 billion US dollars. So within such a short period of time, you see the amount of activities going through our platform is really, really amazing, all right? So as I said, it is just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. There are still a lot more to come in the near future, okay? And then moving forward, as a platform, our principle is very, very simple. We would like to help as many entrepreneurs or enterprise or SMEs as possible to go international, to go global. Hopefully these organizations one day will be able to turn into an MNCs. All right. So our principle is simple. We believe the more people we help, the more good things will come to us. That's the principle that we set. That's the principle that we share with all our platform in the whole 15 countries. So technically, if you look at our trade and investment platform in 15 countries, when we combine it as one, I would actually quite proud to say that we are existingly one of the largest trade and investment platform, that we have actually formed to date. And then, of course, in our asset platform, technically we have trade and investment, but recently also we actually set up an education and cultural exchange platform as well. So this actually complete our so-called the three triangle as far as trades are concerned. Now, education is also very interesting. We already got organizations and even universities. Last week we approached us and talked to us about education, and they want to work together with our platform. Why? Because their MBA program and their DBA program, they want to include one module just on asset. So the very reason why they want to do that is because they said this is going to be the real thing. If all their students, participants, especially those lifelong learning who are already in the working field, this is the real world. After completing the studies, they can actually come on board our platform to really start network and then start doing business. I would say practically lah. So that is why they really love to work with us, and we are also very excited to really be part of the education side as well. Okay, now basically this is if you do not know about ASEP, it's good that you Google it a little bit. There are a lot of information out there. It's technically a free trade agreement. The objective is basically to achieve 90% trade tax-free products where they move around in these 15 countries. All right. So I would not want to bore you with the details of the ASEP, but as I said, it's a very modern and comprehensive agreement where lots and lots of benefits are given to the SMEs. All right. Now, I'm sure most of you will actually ask what benefits or what's in it for me if we work together with your asset platform. Now, namely, I would say the opportunity is really huge for UAE and Sri Lanka as well, because as I said, you'll be looking at 30% of the world population and the world economy. And I can tell you the consumption in this region is really, really fantastic, especially when it comes to raw materials. Most of the countries are really growing. As you know, ASEAN is noted as a future world economic region. So they are really hungry. They consume a lot. So that is why trade is really, really happening in this region. All right. And then, of course, we have offices in all the 15 ASEP countries. This make dealings much easier. We have the local people there. The fear of trust. I would safely say so far we are very good at that. We eliminate a lot of skepticism or whether we can trust the new partners or not. So that actually helps a lot. And then, of course, FDI and ODI can tremendously be increased in your respective country, because why? All our platform, we have an FDI and ODI desk. ODI is overseas outward direct investment. That means, let's say for Sri Lanka or UAE, you want to invest in the ASEP region countries. That would increase tremendously, and it really opens up the windows of opportunity for all SMEs. Now, we are actually at Isla in sourcing partnership, in sourcing dealers, and in sourcing so-called potential buyers for your products. So as I said, our connections with all the countries, government, and all the business councils are very, very close. All right. Now, of course, ASEP is a free trade agreement. So technically, trade among the 15 countries are all tax-free. So I would advise also, if you are out of the whole region, but how do you take advantage of the agreement? Come to our region, whichever country that you choose, we hope we will be able to help you. Form a partnership with the local enterprise there. And then once you are able to establish your organization in that particular country, technically you'll be able to enjoy the whole RCEP free trade agreement, right? And of course, technology-wise, this region is growing very fast. They are very advanced. They are very into technology advancement. So this is again another segment that all of you can also look into. We are very aggressively every day. We are talking about NFT. We are talking about metaverse. How do we transform our business with blockchain and so on and so forth. So a lot of technologies are moving around in this region. So that is where we will also encourage you and invite you to come on board, to embrace technologies like IR 4.0, and of course, last but not least, the future economies is basically borderless. So we are living in a new world now, so we hope that our 15 ASEP countries platform will be able to bring something new on the table for UAE and Sri Lanka as well. Now that I think in business, one thing is very important. Networking, people that once you know the people there, then it's much easier to do business, rather than to talk to strangers and so on. So we are very open. Our platform is really open for all of you. In a while, I'm sure a lot of you may have questions. I'm very happy to answer your questions. If in the near future, should you have any more inquiries, you can also contact Dr. Sulo. We are in very close communication with her as well. All right. So with that, I will end my presentation, and thank you very much, Dr. Sulo and WIM, for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let me invite Nadia Abdul Aziz to speak about the International Chamber of Commerce for Trade and Investment. Chamber of Commerce UAE Custom and Trade Commission UAE. Ms. Aziz is the Customs and Trade Facilitation UAE, National Association of Freight and Logistics, Al-Noor Training Center for Children with Special Needs, and Vilat Middle East. Over to you, Ms. Nadia.
Thank you, everyone. And I don't know if I should say good morning or good afternoon. It's good afternoon here in the United Arab Emirates. I will share my screen with you. First and foremost, of course, I'm very honored to speak briefly about some opportunities that we can work on. One second. We'll start off by looking at different areas. Can you see my screen? Is it possible to see my screen or?
Nadia, now you need to share. Now only you got the access. Reshare.
Okay. Okay. Now I have access. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Is it possible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I am representing and heading the International Chamber of Commerce, United Arab Emirates. The commission, we've got many commissions. So the Custom and Trade Facilitation Commission, which is one of the vital commissions that will help imports, exports, re-exports into the region and globally. So as a head of that, our main mandate is to support business and have people do more business regionally and globally. I also am heading the National Association of Freight and Logistics, NAFL, which is part of a global NGO called FIATA, headquartered in Zurich and now in Geneva. And I also work with special needs children and Edinburgh Business School UAE under Harriet Watt. And I had a freight forwarding company. So I wear different hats and I work very closely on the Customs Business Council group. What we do, what we feel is, I can't seem to, okay. What we really think, as you mentioned, the trade between UAE earlier and Sri Lanka, there is a big gap. Right now, the latest statistics, as we know, it was 226 million US dollars of exports from Sri Lanka to the UAE, whereas the value of goods exported from UAE to Sri Lanka comes to around 920 million US dollars. Predominantly, of course, most of the products that we export from the UAE is petroleum, crude oil, gold, and wire, because these are some of the manufacturing companies that we have as national corporates in the UAE. When we say copper, we have DuCab, which produces wiring and cables, and everything that is produced here is exported. You were speaking about some synergy. Sri Lanka produces trailers, aluminium products. We export aluminium to a lot of the countries because we have one of the largest single smelters in the region that exports almost 97% of its aluminium globally. So I can see quite a bit of synergy in terms of products and manufacturing both ways. Of course, as we know, China is our #1 trading partner, followed by India, where I see synergy and why I want to emphasize on Saudi Arabia is it's an excellent market for your products, and you can export these products to the UAE and they get re-exported to the neighboring countries. And one of the largest consumer markets with a large population is Saudi Arabia. A lot of the global conglomerates that set up in the UAE export their products from the UAE to the Gulf Cooperation countries, which are our neighboring countries, and one of the largest economies is Saudi Arabia. As you can see, our exports, if you look at just Dubai as a small city in the UAE, which has 7 emirates, 30% of our GDP comes from trade. Our exports have been up by 45%, imports up by 29%, and re-exports up by 28.3% in Dubai. And as you can see, is some of the trade figures are on the screen. Overall, 31% up in some of the trade. Now, when we look, we are the one of the largest importers of goods with China. A lot of the Chinese goods come into the UAE to penetrate all these markets, and the same can be done, especially now during the crisis, sourcing a lot of the materials for Sri Lanka with the economic issues can be done through the United Arab Emirates because of our port connectivity, airline connectivity, multimodal connectivity, and agreements, and being part of the One Belt, One Road initiative by the Chinese government to connect China, the Middle East, to Europe and the rest of the world. So all of these materials that can be sourced out of all of the ports and areas in China can be brought to Sri Lanka at a competitive rate because of our connectivity, because of the number of ships calling into our ports. And our port has been almost the 9th largest and a well-known port in the region between Rotterdam and Singapore. It's one of the most active. Cost of doing everything, importing, exporting, everything is done using technology, digitalization. Many humanitarian goods are coming from the UAE to the rest of the world. So even as a humanitarian hub, we are able to support countries, especially as you can see now when there is a big crisis taking place. There is an insufficient amount of fuel. It has impacted the transport of essential goods, even within the country, and the goods coming into the country. And with the regular inflation, topped by the economic crisis that's taking place right now, I can see a lot of synergy between both countries where we can work closely, collaborate on delivering goods on time, whether air or sea or other ways, and using the digital economy and digital platforms to have all of these reach on time and effectively. So we are a place where you can multi-source your goods. We are a place where you can do everything online, reduce cost. We're a place where we can welcome really very warmly the Sri Lankan investors who want to expand their business or move their business or start up branches in the UAE. Of course, as I mentioned, that the exports have grown in 2021. We had 61.7 billion just for Dubai, one city out of the 7 Emirates, versus 50.3 billion US dollars in 2020. And with the pandemic, we have been one of the largest exporters of the vaccine for the entire globe, which tells you how important our logistic coordination, connectivity, and facilities, infrastructure available here that really can support your goods that are being manufactured in Sri Lanka, not only to reach the neighboring countries, but the rest of the world. When I say that, it's because you have more than 250 different international airlines coming into our airports. You have 150 different ships sailing into our ports regularly. We are having the a train that connects the entire UAE to the GCC countries. Now, as chambers of commerce and international chamber of commerce, also if Sri Lankan traders are importing goods coming into exhibitions, since we have the largest exhibitions in the MENA region, as Dubai, followed by Abu Dhabi, the chambers can issue an ATA carnet where you do not pay custom duty for a long period of time for any goods imported into the country, which is giving you benefit if you have project cargo or any construction products, projects, exhibitions, or showcasing any materials. Even as you mentioned that there is a lot of diamonds being exported from Sri Lanka to other countries. So if you are sending goods for exhibitions or to showcase, you will save a lot of money using these trade facilitation tools, such as the ATA carnet, which is issued by the chambers globally and in the UAE. Now, as a UAE, if we have Sri Lankan investors or other investors interested in the region, we have the largest banking sector in the MENA, Middle East, North African region. Total assets, this is in 2019, end of 2019, 805 billion US dollars. Of course, there is huge focus on digitalization because it is part of the strategy. So whoever is into the technology business, we are one of the hubs for the region, for the technology, for the applications, for digitalizing any kind of business sector. And we do have a lot of the financial technology companies that support SMEs, all registered in the Dubai International Financial Center, along with international courts and arbitration center in the DIFC Center to accommodate all the international companies and give you access to international laws to support your business. Now, if I look at ICC, I don't want to get into a lot of details, but the International Chamber of Commerce works in more than 100 countries. It has more than 45 million corporate entities as members. So once you become a member, whether in Sri Lanka or the UAE, if you start up in the UAE, you have access to 45 million corporates in 100 countries. It is one of the most reputed NGOs, working closely with all the global NGOs and all the global governments where it works in. It's been incorporated more than 100 years, and the headquarters is in Paris. And the main mandate for this organization is to build relationship networks and do business and reduce any bottlenecks. So if you've got any issues while you set up in the UAE, we can support you and speak to the government offices to reduce any of the barriers for doing business. And we've got different committees with the main interest to protect your business. So if you are part of the ICC Sri Lanka, we offer similar benefits there. ICC UAE, which I'm representing also, we offer a lot of the benefits to our members within the UAE and give you access to the 7 Emirates as well as the regional countries and globally in 200 countries. In terms of the National Association of Freight and Logistics, as I mentioned, it's headquartered in Geneva. It works in 150 countries. So as head of this NGO in the UAE, we can support you by connecting you. If you've got any imports, exports, cross-trade, even not within the UAE, we will be able to connect you to 44,000 reputed freight forwarders and logistic companies across the globe. As I mentioned, all the 7 Emirates support, you will get support from the government entities because we work very closely with the government entities despite being an NGO and non-government entity. And we've been there for many years. These are the different chambers that we get a big support from, and they are also some of the director generals sit on our board. As I mentioned, we will facilitate your business across the region and in the UAE. Best practices, training, and networking with our members, of course, voting rights, etc. We hosted the Global Chambers Congress in the UAE during the pandemic, and we had more than 3,800 attendees, plus 3,000 virtually. So it was very successful. We host a lot of events across the MENA region, global events. It is all open to our members. But the main thing is we want to engage the members, get you business. Now, one of the key things that I heard is people want to do matchmaking and get good contacts to do business and execute these MOUs. We are all about this, and we have the database related to this because we work with all the chambers and all the companies registered in the UAE. They're registered under the Chamber of Commerce as well as the Economic Department. So the database of the business people that you want to connect with is available with us. And of course, we have different kind of memberships and tiers. The independent membership, so you can obtain an independent one just for you or a corporate one, and you've got the voting rights. But the main objective is to connect you to the world, connect you to the business people within the UAE, and give you a voice when you have good ideas or best practices that you want to implement or you want someone to hear regionally and globally. The International Chamber of Commerce works on these initiatives and projects and submits reports to the government and global NGOs. So basically, these are the main things. And we've got different commissions. So if you're looking at finance from banks, we've got the Banking Commission. If you're looking at custom trade facilitation tools, we have this commission that works to support your business and network. Trade and investment also will help your investors if they're coming into the country to connect, to receive them, to connect them with the different chambers also within the UAE, and to network and connect you with the right business partners. We do have an academy based in Singapore, and we do host training courses in every country that we work in. So there are certified courses in trade, finance, Incoterms, and many more, import, export, etc. And these are all recognized by well-reputed organizations such as the London Institute of Banking and Finance, the Institute of Banking and Finance Singapore, GTPA, Global Trade Professionals Alliance, ICC, and BAFT, and many other universities. We do have areas where you can benefit as corporates from the media, online and print media. We do have our own publications, and we do have social media coverage for our members regionally and globally. So wherever you are, you can benefit from the International Chamber of Commerce network. You do have it in Sri Lanka, but if you're going to move into the UAE, we will be able to support your investors. And of course, the importance of the Sri Lankan Business Council in the UAE and the Sri Lankan Consulate and the Trade Attaché is very important if you're looking at setting up anything in the UAE. We will be connected, of course, a lot with the Sri Lankan Business Council and planning to work closely together. But if anybody needs any information, these are the reputed organizations that you should connect with before starting any business here, because they will be able to connect you to the right government bodies also. So we can give you networks, certified trainings, and trade facilitation tools. For example, the TIR Carnet, which you can move your goods by land, by sea, without a lot of custom procedures and taking time. AEO, Authorized Economic Operator, it's a tool certified by Dubai Customs and Global Customs Organization, and it will allow traders from Sri Lanka who will send goods to the UAE to import, export their goods without a lot of time being wasted, with trade facilitation, faster, effective, cost effectively also, because the customs, if you are certified, the customs will not be checking a lot on your goods. They know you, they've done their due diligence, and you will get a premium experience with customs, which gives you as a trader benefit over other traders. Now, the UAE has many free trade agreements with many countries. We do have it with the Arab League. You have more than 19-20 countries there, and we have a lot of FTAs, free trade agreements, with many other countries, which if you bring in and relocate your manufacturing business or expand in the UAE, goods are produced in the UAE, you are able to penetrate these markets without paying any custom duty. The same thing, as I mentioned, SEPA agreements. We are having SEPA, we have already with India, we have many countries in the pipeline, such as Turkey, Armenia, and many other countries. And this also will enable you to source goods from the UAE, export them to your country at very competitive rates, which is right now, with the inflation that's taking place, it will be ideal for the traders from Sri Lanka to do so, and vice versa. As I mentioned, all of these will give you a competitive advantage. The UAE internet usage is 100%. So the entire population, in fact, as given by the World Bank, they know that we have 100% internet penetration. Everybody has access to the internet, which means we are one of the largest markets in our region, followed also by Saudi Arabia when it comes to e-commerce. So you are able to penetrate this entire population using e-commerce, or build your e-commerce and fulfillment centers in the UAE to penetrate the region and globally. You can reach 2/3 of the global population in less than 8 hours, 1/3 of the global population in less than 3 hours, using the airline connectivity that we have. The government is focusing on digitalization, so anything related to technology, we welcome that. We welcome investors there or entrepreneurs. There are incentives in this field. Exports, we can be your export or re-export hub or fulfillment center. I know 17% plus of the tea that you have comes to the United Arab Emirates. We have a coffee center and a tea center in a Dubai Multi-Commodity Center, DMCC. And this has grown to become a global center, which we don't produce any tea, but we are the largest, one of the largest tea exporters in the world, thanks to Sri Lanka, one of our largest partners. But this was not possible if there was no bilateral trade, and then the packaging and the re-export infrastructure is available here. So we benefit from this, both countries benefit. And I see synergy in these areas. The garment industry is the same. We can do the same for the garment industry in Sri Lanka. We are able to re-export it or partially produce it there, final goods being packed here and re-exported to the rest of the world with no glitches in the logistics or deliveries. The government has a lot of initiatives. The retirement visa, people are able to retire here and live here, buy their own freehold apartments, commercial enterprises Golden visas for 10 years is being granted by the government to a lot of the investors. Also, the bankruptcy law, it is in favor now of the traders and investors versus earlier. Now we have also 100% foreign ownership on the mainland. We have more than 40 free zones, specialized free zones across the UAE. However, even the mainland now, people are allowed, foreigners, to own their business 100% without the need of a local partner. There is no issues with repatriating your funds out of your businesses. And of course, our global in order to be in sync with the global economy, we have the weekends also adjusted. Now we are off on Saturdays and Sundays. And as I mentioned, we need to work on the agreements and benefit your investors using the UAE free trade agreements and using the agreements that Sri Lanka has to benefit the UAE products. The focus in the country right now as a government, heavy focus on aerospace, maritime, as I know there is a lot of work being done in terms of logistics in Sri Lanka. Food and beverage, you do have these products available, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment. So we are looking at these goods even being produced here. Machinery, aluminium, fabricated metals. We have the smelters that produce pure aluminium. Now the fabricating the other products, you can do that, and your investors can come and do that with no issues of having their own factories here without having a local partner, and having very low VAT rates. And if goods are exported out of the free zone, you do not pay anything, no VAT being paid. Big focus on green logistics, and I see also a lot of things, synergy between both countries. But I think in order to take this one step forward, we should engage the consulate, Sri Lankan consulate within the UAE, the Business Council, and the Chambers of Commerce in Sri Lanka to connect the investors who are interested to come and invest here. And we will do our part as International Chamber of Commerce UAE or the federal chambers of the UAE to support any investors coming here, whether it is capacity building, investment, re-exports, fulfillment centers, e-commerce business, or even getting investors to Sri Lanka wherever there is an opportunity. We are ready, we are here, and I am ready to commit and make sure that we work on this. And I'd like to thank you for bearing with me with this long presentation. Thank you very much, and hope to be in touch with you for any assistance that you have.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll go. Since my auntie has lost her electricity, I have to take over. Now it's going to Ms. Renuka Weerakone, and she will be speaking on the opportunities for foreign investors in Sri Lanka. She's the she's the Director General Board of Investment Sri Lanka, previously holding the post of Executive Director heading Project Monitoring in her career at BOI, spanning 28 years experience. She's an attorney at law by profession, counting over 33 years of experience, and commenced her working career as instructing attorney with leading law firm in Colombo. Over to you, ma'am. And over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sulochana. And let me take this opportunity to thank WIM for inviting the BOI to talk about opportunities in investments that the country offers. Hi to all the fellow panelists. It's good to be with you. Good afternoon or evening, as it may be in your part of the world. If I could share my screen, I could just have a few slides to talk on.
1 minute, ma'am. We have to give access. Now you can.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so let's start with the give me a moment, please. When it jumped. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, like with the ties that we've been having with the UAE. Though we opened our embassy only in 1979, which was about 4 decades ago, traditionally, I think from time immemorial, Sri Lanka and UAE have been trading partners from the times that we were exporting our spices way back in the, like maybe centuries ago. And we continue those strong ties with UAE in terms of trade and investments. UAE is our largest export destination in terms of number 11, and also the biggest source of imports into the country from the Gulf region. Sri Lanka and UAE have about 9 bilateral agreements, including a double taxation agreement. And we are now discussing the bilateral investment promotion and protection agreements. The talks are underway to finalize, which will make it very much more comfortable for companies locating in Sri Lanka from UAE to do their businesses, knowing that they don't have to pay tax in both parts of the world, and that their investments will also be guaranteed by the BIT that we are discussing. Currently, under the Board of Investments, we have about 46 projects that have located in Sri Lanka from the UAE, and which has generated about 700 million of FDI into the country, and also provided employment to over 2,600 persons of Sri Lankan origin. These projects are across various sectors in manufacturing, in ICT, the services sector, tourism, infrastructure, and utilities. So let's look at why Sri Lanka. Why would you want to come here, and why would you want to invest? So let me give you a snapshot, a brief overview of why. If you look at the investment climate, 100% foreign ownership is permitted in Sri Lanka. So you do not have to have a joint venture partner with the Sri Lankan. You can come in as a 100% foreign entity. And the investments are guaranteed by the constitution of the country. And there are very strong intellectual property laws in line with the World Intellectual Property Organization regulations. And we are also signatory to the MIGA of the World Bank. In terms of incentives that we offer, for particular sectors like the fabric and manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, we have 5 to 10 year tax holiday period that is granted. And also preferential corporate income tax rates are applicable depending on the type of project that you undertake in our country. We also provide import duty exemptions on your raw materials and your capital items when you're starting your project here. So you do not have to pay any of that when you register through the BOI, you get those exemptions. On top of this, you are also eligible for enhanced capital allowances, which is a scheme where the depreciation allowance given to the capital items that you bring for your project is 100% from year 1. So the normal rate is 35% depreciation, but under this enhanced capital allowance scheme, you are permitted to have 135% depreciation, which would actually, in essence, make you be a tax-free entity, because once you do your depreciation, you will not be having profits to pay taxes on. So that's a mechanism that has been introduced and which is very beneficial for companies that locate here. In terms of talent and education, Sri Lanka ranks #1 in South Asia in terms of the literacy rate. English is widely spoken and understood, and we have a very versatile and skilled workforce. Most of the investors that are with us always talk to us about how happy they are with the workforce and the skill level that is found in Sri Lanka. In terms of market access, we have access to over 450 million consumers through the EU GSP Plus to the EU market, and over 1.5 billion consumer market through the Indian and Pakistani FTAs that we have. We have also entered into an FTA with Singapore, which covers not only goods, but services as well. So in terms of market access, I think this gives you a snapshot of what you can tap on when you come and locate in Sri Lanka. In terms of the quality of life, we rank highest in the Human Development Index in South Asia. And we also offer cosmopolitan lifestyle with world-class hotels and high-end shopping entities, as well as we offer international healthcare facilities for expats and the locals in the country. In terms of locational advantages, we are a transshipment hub in South Asia, well connected to the trade and business routes and the centers, and strategically located at the crossroads of major shipping routes. So the east-west shipping route just passes 8 nautical miles south of the island. And I think this may interest most of the UAE companies who are into this type of operations, because the strategic location that Sri Lanka offers is definitely an advantage for companies operating in the logistics sector. Let us look at the potential sectors for investments, for UAE investments that could benefit from the trade agreements we have entered into with India, Pakistan, and through the trade agreement with EU GSP Plus. So these three trade agreements gives you access to South Asian and European markets with over 2 million consumers. I wouldn't go through the whole list. I think you will get an idea of the type of projects that can be undertaken here to leverage on these advantages that we can offer through our trade agreements. In terms of the potential sectors for investments, as I said earlier, logistics is one major area that Sri Lanka can give you a comparative advantage. So the areas of investment we would encourage you to look at is for transport and distribution, for freight forwarding, for logistics services in terms of bonded warehouses or multi-country consolidation. Why we say this is because Colombo Port rankings, if you look at the world rankings, Sri Lanka has been ranked among the top maybe 25. And these are independent rankings given by international companies and international entities. So we are able to cater to most of the logistical and infrastructure requirements of logistic operators. And we are competitive in terms of the shipping and border administration costs, in terms of domestic transport time and costs, and the time required for export and import compliances. Another area we would encourage you to look at in the services sector is the renewable energy sector. This has a huge potential, and Sri Lanka has announced that we are moving towards a green energy policy. So there's a lot of encouragement to come and invest in this area. And the potential areas we are promoting are solar and wind power generation, LNG power plants, manufacturing or assembly also of the solar panels, electric meters, switches, and related power transmission control systems, power cables, etc. So here again is a new area that we have now opened out, and we are encouraging investors to come into. Speaking of the services sector, we are also very much focused on tourism and leisure. We are well known for the splendor of our country and the short distances that you have to travel in terms of the beaches and the highland and the north and the south. I mean, within a 5-hour or 6-hour drive, you can either go to the hill country or go to a beach resort or go to the cultural sites. So it is a very well known destination for tourism, and we encourage investors to come and set up in this area, which has a lot of scope with the growing demand for such activities in terms of even marinas and the yachting and related adventure and that sport related tourism as well. So tourism has been one of the areas, even, I mean, during these challenging times, that we still have investors coming in and setting up so that they would be ready to take off when things become normal. So that is one area you could look at positively. The ICT sector is another one that has been growing very much. Again, we have seen phenomenal growth in this sector, especially during the pandemic and the other times, because I think working from home for these sectors has been very easy. So this is one of the areas that, again, we are seeing a tremendous increase in investor interest and location in Sri Lanka. This, I think, has also been because we have very good connectivity. We have 5G technology, which is used. It has been trialed and would be rolled out. I mean, it was tested by March of this year. Currently, we have the 4G, but the 5G will also be rolled out during this year. In terms of the facilitation that the BOI offers, actually, I was very interested to hear that Nadia was speaking about a matchmaking portal. So we introduced a matchmaking portal just last week. And by this portal that is hosted on our website, what we want to do is to matchmake between our existing investors and others who would want to maybe infuse financial commitments into the current operations, or maybe going for joint ventures or start new companies together with local enterprises, or it could even be international enterprises that are located here. So it would, we have got a very good response and feedback after we hosted this, where people have been reaching out to see how they could network with the rest of the communities and see how they can grow their businesses through this facilitation we have offered. So BOI has been focusing more on the facilitation aspect of what we can offer investors. So we are moving more towards a digital transformation, where we have now enabled even your applications in terms of BOI project applications to be submitted online. Your clearances, what is unique in BOI is the BOI does all the customing functions for our project investors. They do not have to go to the customs department. So even all your customs declarations in terms of your raw materials, in terms of goods that need to be brought in or exported, are done online as well. So these transitions have been happening along with the pandemic time. And now we have moved it into even our visa system, where your visa is also enabled online. You do not have to make any physical visits, which had been the case over the last few years. So as much as possible, we are trying to move into the digitized system and go towards a paperless organization, which again, the investors have been giving us very positive feedback, because they do not have to be worried about coming over and handing over documentation to see that things are processed. Now it can be done online. In terms of facilitation, again, we host a job bank portal where people can look for the vacancies. When there are vacancies, they can look at the list of people we have put there that can be used for, that can be recruited. And similarly, we have a land bank which offers the potential sites, because other than the BOI zones, which we have, which the BOI runs, I mean, again, another unique feature by an IPA, we run our own zones as well. So other than our zones, we host other lands that can be accessed for development purposes. And so we are moving very much towards the digitized and streamlining services. And when you come into the BOI, we handhold you from day one to see that you are connected with the relevant stakeholders, that we resolve any issues you may have, that we can clarify policies, and that we can be with you and help you with getting your approvals, and even take you on site visits and see that if you need to have physical meetings with joint venture partners, to facilitate all of that. So the journey with BOI, I mean, till the life cycle of your project, it's not only after approval, we don't let it go, we are with you throughout the life cycle. I would also like to talk about a new feature that we have introduced. It's called the Investor Facilitation Center. This is virtually a one-stop shop to assist investors, where the investor would not have to visit department by department in the BOI itself, or even go to other institutions for related approvals or clarifications. What we do is we host this IFC in the 27th floor of the World Trade Center, where we are housed. And the investor would only have to go to this particular space, and they would be met with by the relevant officials, and they would be advised and guided how to proceed with their project. And if there are instances where we need to get outside stakeholder agencies involved, there again, we would be inviting them into this space, and the investor would meet them here, so that they would have a seamless service and seamless experience with the BOI. So that's a brief snapshot of what we do. And thank you again for the opportunity given to speak to all of you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Renuka. So the next speaker we have, if you can stop this, right, that would be. Speaker is Mr. Dunston Periera, who will speak on about the opportunities on investment opportunities and trade business. Mr. Dunston Periera is the CEO to the private office of His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Faisal Al Qussim. He's versed and versatile personality who was in corporate leadership role with multinationals for almost 30 years. With his vast experience in global relationship, he has taken up this challenge assignment with the private office to take it one of the most acclaimed and accepted business organization in the world. Over to you, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, greetings to everyone, and thanks Wim and Sulochana for this wonderful opportunity. I had been observing the various speakers, and I would say it is indeed a great session that we had, because a lot of information has been shared, and I'm sure it will definitely benefit the business community from Sri Lanka as well as from UAE, who would like to invest in both the countries. Now, since most of the earlier speakers like Madam Nadia and Renuka had already covered most of the things that I wanted to speak, but still, as we all know, UAE and Sri Lanka shares a beautiful relationship, because UAE is one of the largest trade partners for Sri Lanka. And as one of our earlier speaker had said, that the exports from UAE had been almost about 1.84 billion. The exports from Sri Lanka to UAE is just about 300 billion, which means there is a huge gap still available. Even though the major exports from UAE to Sri Lanka is on from the petroleum products, there is still huge opportunities for Sri Lanka to capture this gap, because today, except tea, textiles, vegetable products, tobacco, sea products, which are coming from Sri Lanka, the consumption rate in UAE is much large. And as Madam Nadia had said, re-export is another major possibility for the Sri Lankan market, because UAE being geographically placed, well placed in terms of connectivity to the entire global business world, products coming into UAE, it's not only being consumed here, but it's getting re-exported from here to various other markets like the African markets, the UK, and the other Eastern markets. So there's a huge potential that is available in terms of getting the products to UAE and then re-exporting it from this country. And just to give a brief about us, we represent one of the royal families of UAE, and we are into diversified portfolios of gold and diamond, healthcare, hospitality, entertainment, sports. Now we are getting into crypto. So name it, we are into diversified activities that we feel that we can get into. And in addition to that, the most important thing is, even though the government is very supportive in terms of various benefits that is being offered to investors who are coming into UAE, we support the investors in two aspects. One, even though there is 100% ownership possibilities available in this country, at times for certain business sectors, there is a credibility factor that is involved. In the mean, if suppose a new person is coming into this country, for him to get accepted into the business community, the credibility factor comes in front of him. That is, for example, if I am starting a business on my own as a 100% entity, I go into the business community to sell my product or services. My background becomes a critical factor for me to establish myself in the business, and I may take a longer period to establish. So in such scenarios, we from the Royal Office, we support these entities, hand-holding them, telling them, taking them as part of our group, and we back them in the business community so that they are known as a group company of so-and-so royal family. So that helps them a little more in terms of promoting their products or services. The second aspect is, wherever there's a possibilities of the business entities who are looking at setting up a manufacturing unit or a warehousing facility, etc., we provide them with land either on free of charge or at a reduced cost, or as an equity. We join them as an equity partner by providing the land, and that enables them to kind of establish their business in whichever Emirates they want to do it. But predominantly, we are looking at Ras Al Khaimah, and as of now, Ras Al Khaimah is the next emerging emirate in the entire UAE, and a lot of activities are being planned by our family in connection with the government of Ras Al Khaimah. To name a few, we are coming out with the world's biggest film city, which is going to come up in Ras Al Khaimah, spanning about 2,000 acres or 200 hectares of land. Then another project is the pharmaceutical city, where we are planning to bring in all the pharmaceutical companies together under one umbrella. We are coming out with a sports academy, again in Ras Al Khaimah. We are coming out with an underwater theme park, a wildlife sanctuary. So you name it, there's going to be a lot of activities that is going to happen in the next 4 to 5 years in Ras Al Khaimah alone. And as I see, there's a lot of synergies that is possible from the business people from Sri Lanka to collaborate with in some of these projects in Ras Al Khaimah, so that there is a back-to-back arrangement saying that their business is also assured that there is an offtake to these projects, vice versa. Now, since most of you already know that Dubai is or UAE is one of the most popular countries in the world, why is it so? Dubai, which is known for its opulence and grandeur, is arguably without a doubt the only country that can perhaps boast of this title. Everything is indeed larger than life, right from its lifestyle to various other businesses. Dubai always boasts or always likes to claim that we have the best, we have the tallest building, we have the largest building. So you name it, we wanted to be the best. Here are some of the few points as to why it is true. Dubai was ranked in the top 5 global cities for entrepreneurs in 2020, along with New York, London, Tokyo, Paris, and Milan. With an estimated 50% of the population being expats and tourists, Dubai is seen as the city of business. The safety and security of your business, employees, and your intended market is always the #1 priority, which makes it an ideal place to start your business. Dubai is also considered the most crime-free city compared to other regions, which in turn means that your businesses and the people involved will definitely be secure. Finance. Dubai is also considered as a strong commercial capital in the Middle East. All this is possible because of the well-connected transport system, low tax business deals, and an extremely stable financial sector. Dubai is noted to be the gateway of the world's most developed markets, which includes Africa, India, and China. It is also positioned geographically between the East and the West, making it a hub of endless possibilities, which is what I was mentioning in the earlier stages. Dubai has the largest port in the Middle East, which is situated in Jebel Ali. It is also the biggest container port in the world, which already Madam Nadia had shared in her presentation. an abundance of free zones. Free zones are basically special economic zones for business owners that gets a benefit of 100% ownership and also tax exemptions. If you're looking into starting a business that requires a lot of manpower, then there is no place that can offer you the multi-diverse skill and support than its huge population of working expats and also growing number of people looking into job, etc. in this country, because this nation is serving to almost 191 nationalities who are working in this country or living in this country. Dubai as a country goes to a great length to protect its citizens and visitors in terms of offering the best healthcare services at affordable rates. The recent pandemic COVID is a great example of how Dubai proved itself and bounced back to regular life much quicker than it was anticipated and compared to other countries across the world. So these are some of the few points as to making why UAE or in large Dubai unique in its own presence. So if you consider, for example, Sri Lanka, which if few of them, if they are able to encash this opportunity, and I think we can go a longer way and we can bridge the gap that is currently available in terms of the economy or in terms of the bilateral trade. And I look forward to supporting anyone who requests our support. And we look forward. Once again, thank you, Sulochana, and take care.
Thank you very much, Dunston, for that introduction. So our final speaker, Shamira.
Thank you, Dr. Sulo. And
let me introduce you, Shamira. I have your introduction. Let me introduce you. So Shamira is the founder and managing director of Verb and Marketing Communications. She's a PR specialist, marketing in hospitality, tourism, and in luxury industry. Has been in her professions, and she has, I think, 3 decades or several years experience and recognizing need of specialized PR agency and hospitality tourism industry. Origin is from Pakistan, but I think she's a resident of UAE. Over to you. Shamira. Shamira, can you hear us? I think we lost Shamira. Okay, till she joins back, can we take, I think we can take 1 or 2 questions. So one of the things Nadia has put it in a message direct to the admin was DMC is a semi-government office and free zone. Does that, and you have option to do yourself for your investment. If there are any questions which you want to ask, please post it on the inbox so that we can ask the from the speakers. And there was another direct question. It's about agriculture. What are the opportunities for agriculture industry? Anyone can answer?
Can I answer?
Yes.
As a strategy, government strategy of the UAE, we do have a full-fledged ministry and Minister of Food Security, which is also a female. So you can see the importance of women empowerment in the UAE, in the private sector, in the government sector, and even in the ministerial level, as well as the national cabinet. But the strategy of the country is to focus on digitalization, making the country one of the best places to live in, enhancing customer experience services with the government sectors as well as private while you're living, traveling, or visiting the UAE. Huge emphasis on food security and investment in different countries in agriculture. in land, in agricultural product exports. And one of the things that you can see when everybody was complaining about having shortages in the supermarkets at the beginning of the pandemic, we do not produce any kind of food items here. Most of our food products are imported, above 80–90%. So we did not have any shortages because the government had well planned ahead of time and had all of these relations and buffer to support the country when there is a crisis, when there is a shortage. And we have a female young minister who heads this so heavy focus, not only from the private sector, but as a government on the agricultural part. So I can see synergy here. You would need to let us know what is available, what are the investment opportunities to connect with the government investment offices.
Thank you very much. Rohan, I think you can take over, but I saw Shamira was joining. If she can given an opportunity to speak. Shamira,
Hello.
you are here.
Sorry, I'm
Yes.
back. And my sincere apologies. Had I been sitting in Dubai, this would not have happened. But I'm away in Africa at the moment, spending some time with my mother. And hence, I apologize that, you know, just when I was coming on, the internet dropped. So I missed my introduction. But Dr. Sulo, knowing you, it probably was a lovely, flowery one. So thank you for that. You know, I thought I would be the only one who was not going to have a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm glad to see that Dunston also did not have one. Talking about UAE and Dubai in specific, I think is a 34-year-old love affair. What can I say? It's been home to my family and me. My husband and son come from India and I'm from Pakistan. And, you know, UAE, as it is a you know, melting pot of cultures, is home to just so many nationalities. So Dr. Sulo has already told you my background professionally. Let's just get on to what UAE has done and the marvelous marketing that UAE does as a nation branding. And I think any country partnering with UAE means to truly up its marketing efforts and relook at its nation branding strategy. Ms. Nadia, you know, has given us a real in-depth of what UAE has to offer. And, you know, whilst there might have been some areas which we may have felt were new, but I'm sure most of it everyone is aware of because UAE brands itself so well, UAE markets itself so well. But let's look at UAE's branding history. It's undoubtedly been the best marketed young nation or young country on the globe. And the reason I say young country, because, you know, all the countries that we are all originally representing from have been there for such a long time. And you look at UAE's history, 50 years, and wow, I mean, you know, it's as a resident, I feel so proud that I can just as well imagine what the national feels. You know, whilst it's enjoyed a monolithic growth, its world recognition is unprecedented. UAE's humble beginnings of a fishing harbor and pearl diving to today hosting a world-class expo. I mean, I think it's not about UAE getting the expo, but expo getting UAE and Dubai for that matter. It's put Expo on such a platform that I'm sure that everybody else is gunning to now host Expo, but no matter what anyone tries, I'm sure it's not going to be what Dubai and UAE did. And you know, none of this really happens by waving a magic wand. There is a great team in place, but along with that, there is a thorough, structured and well-planned strategy. And this is also the case with its marketing efforts. UAE today, as we all know, is the most desired country to visit and live in. And this is due to its exceptional nation branding and can well be touted as an example of best practices for a country's brand marketing. You know, I travel such a lot, and every time I am in some country where I'm meeting a tourism board, I always tell them one thing. I said, you know what, don't reinvent the wheel. Dubai and UAE has the best roadmap. I mean, just follow their footsteps. Look at the way they have marketed the country. Look at the way the nation branding has been done. I mean, it is second to none. So whilst UAE has bilateral trade agreements with several countries, and as we've heard from Ms. Nadia, she listed the top 5, and I would say the top 3, you know, being China, India, and the US. And what comes to mind when you think of these countries and their brand presence in the UAE? What have these countries done that has put them in the mark, that has given them the visibility? It's strong marketing efforts, right from celebrity endorsements, from Bollywood and Hollywood collaborations, you know, to China's well-known Dragon Mart, you know, having its, like China having a physical presence in UAE. So these are just some of the things that I can name. There, I'm sure that, you know, there is just so much that is being done, right from products availability on the shelves to, and yet if you think of what UAE really exports out, it's the crude oil, it's you know, the petroleum. But that is not what is really sort of front-facing. The front-facing is more the entire tourism, the cultural, the you know, those sort of aspects. And this is where the collaboration with countries such as India, US, China have been very strong. And these countries have truly made their presence felt. You know, that having said, let's take a quick look at what we understand by nation branding. What really is a brand? It is a name, a term, a sign, a symbol, a logo, a design that one can look at. And if you really look at some of UAE's logos, even without a textual reference, I'm sure if you had to see it anywhere, even outside of UAE, you would definitely recognize, oh my God, you know, that's the expo. That's Dubai Expo, or that's, you know, the Yas Marina, or, you know, for example, when I think of the 7 Emirates, I feel that all of them put together have had such a holistic approach and have such a holistic brand in totality. You look at Sharjah, you know, it's home to just numerous museums, just so many museums. You look at Ras Al Khaimah, you know, getting better known for all its wellness resorts. Abu Dhabi, you know, the Yas Marina and the largest man-made safari resort. And Dubai, of course, you know, it's just never ending. When you look back at Dubai's history, you know, it started off with the shopping festivals. When you look at tourism and how it was, how it's made its presence felt globally. And then after that came the sporting events. And soon after that, it was the IMF. And then the trade fairs and, you know, the expo. And when you look at the achievements, you even, you know, look at, you know, the sort of, you know, going to Mars and wow. And UAE is a young country. And I think the efforts have just, you know, they're just unbelievably great. So going back to having the presence felt, I feel that, you know, this is something that one can, that is a takeaway for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a great country. I had the opportunity to visit there right after IFA. And speaking of IFA, I think when IFA was held in 2010, it really put Sri Lanka on the map. And, you know, everybody sort of flocked there in large numbers to visit this beautiful country. Again, when I was there, I was really, really impressed. My very close friend and also a business associate, Oma Ghosh, who then had the television channel, you know, a show called Highlight Dubai, was invited by the tourism board. And it was brilliant because what was showcased to us was, it was absolutely phenomenal. And I feel that more of this is what is required, you know. When you think Sri Lanka and UAE, the first thing that comes to your mind is Dilma tea. like it's had an association and it's available on Emirates Airline for the last 30 years or something. So it's things like that 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 can really situate a country's brand out there. And then again, when you look at a strong nation brand, what it can do for the country's image and influence. It can bring in foreign investment, facilitate trade, which we've been hearing from so many of our speakers today, increase the country's exports, attract tourism, which is really the front face of everything in a country, strengthen the economic value, placing the country high up on the global map. And UAE is undoubtedly the best example of it. Whilst we focus on external branding efforts, I think it's equally important to ensure the same story is marketed internally, creating, public awareness and bringing the public and private sector together under a like-minded purpose. Because often we go out and, we are marketing products, we are talking about certain things, and you realize when you visit the country that people there are not as familiar as what the story that is being sold outside. So that is another aspect which I think UAE has done brilliantly. Not only does the country market its top-notch products and facilities externally, but as much effort is put within the country. And when a nation branding is strong internally and externally, it helps and builds public perception for tourism, for exports, for government policies, for country's reputation, and most importantly, in foreign investment. And with that, I think I shall pass it back on to Dr. Sulu. And happy to answer any questions further on.
Thank you, Shamira. And I hand it over to, I think, Rohan. Rohan
thank you,
Maskorala. Yes, Rohan, you can take it.
Yeah, I think we have about 9 minutes according to your timetable that you have passed on to me. There's a couple of questions. I think it's I think from Nadia. Nadia, hope you can remember you came to Colombo in 2018.
Yes, I do remember.
And you had the engagement with number of ministers in the previous government. What people are asking is, someone asking whether if you're establishing a business connection with UAE, whether they should physically come there or whether they could do it kind of online. Have they got to be present physically? What would you advise?
I would recommend that if you have any kind of investors or sector or opportunity with the government in Sri Lanka, is first of all, if you are prepared, I would recommend to contact. If you want connections in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, connect with ICC or the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. We can give you their contacts, tell them about the opportunity and request for a meeting. They will also be able to connect you with the relevant government office that may be interested in investing in any sector that you offer, and vice versa. But I would recommend it goes through the official channels rather than just consultants, because officials will not charge any of you, and investors and the big investors.
Right. So even the ICC can that way facilitate if they
Yes.
with you, right?
Yes, sure.
Right. Secondly, I was thinking whether it is a good idea for two business delegations, Sulochana can maybe organize it for a specific visit to Dubai or the UAE.
Yes, yes,
another-
great. But
another
just
group
don't
to-
do it in the summer. My
Yes.
recommendation. End of October onwards, yes.
Yeah. Also, similarly, if you could help assist a delegation to come to Sri Lanka in a couple of months' time to see the new opportunities, because you might be hearing all the negative news on news, which we understand. But then, as I said at the outset, that it's time for us to move on a different direction, and therefore some kind of business activity coming from the connectivity is so close, 4 hour, 3.5 hours flight, whether you could facilitate with Solo to get us a delegation down here into. I'm actually personally organizing the Colombo International Maritime and Logistics Conference in November. So maybe it might be a good opportunity for Dubai-based companies to look at investing here to access the Indian market. And actually it is mainly hosted by the Adani Group of India.
Yes, Adani, yes.
Yeah, yes. So on my side, so I would recommend that from this discussion, I think a lot of interesting facts from RCEP to Dubai branding, and of course, it's a country that I personally admire the way things are done. Interestingly, for all the listeners, Sri Lanka sits exactly in the middle between global hubs of Singapore and Dubai. 4 hours of sailing, 4 days of sailing, and 4 hours of flight. It's we right at the center. So obviously, what we can collaborate and do with our partner hubs. I always look at the 2 big hubs as an opportunity for Sri Lanka to coordinate and do things better for global distribution and working hand in glove kind of situation.
Exactly, and also in Sri Lanka, once there is investment and collaboration, the cost of goods coming into Sri Lanka to the public will be drastically reduced. The issues that you are facing right now, once there are things, proper funding, investments, collaboration, a lot of these issues can be reduced or even eliminated.
So I think I have another 4 minutes. If the audience has any other questions, I think you can put on, because can I ask another question? Because Sri Lanka is now, so we'll be opening its gates again, once again, for tourism towards the winter period. How would you advise the Sri Lankan business community about marketing and promoting ourselves as a tourist destination in Dubai or UAE for that matter?
First and foremost, when there is negative news in the media, you need to get out. I know one of our speakers was a PR specialist and marketing specialist. We need to combat that with positive news in the media, show good things happening in Sri Lanka, things are back to normal, heavy advertising on international channels, regional channels here, and participating also in the we have the Arab Tourism Conference, which is one of the largest tourism events here in Dubai. So all the countries come and promote their country. But also, I think packages with travel agents, but first start with the news to remove all of the negative associations with what's happening in Sri Lanka and get it back to how it used to be. And also focusing on security, safety and security. And these are some of the negative things that have come out on the news, and we need to combat that by positive information, reinforcement of nice things in Sri Lanka, the beautiful hotels, the different destinations for families, business, and the opportunities also showcased, not only tourism, but also business opportunities. And focusing on prime time in the news channels, where you have your target market, maybe high-end or business people watching these specific news channels at the peak hours with the largest viewership